Passing, an absolute staple in the game of football. Unless, of course, you love to play Brexit.
Love it.
Or if you're Harry Maguire, attempting to play out from the back. One thing's for certain, FIFA 23 of all things is a game which is based on passing like no other. You could say FIFA 22 was, well, a game of dribbling, whereas this year, dribbling has been flushed down the drain. This means FIFA 23 is all about the passing plays and who can suffice the best tempo, the best taka, and the best passing vision, unlike any other FIFA. Of course, your boy has you covered, and this is a complete passing tutorial in FIFA 23. Of course, we have to delve into the basics of passing. Of course, to pass, you just press the X button on PS5 or A on Xbox. That activates the regular pass in FIFA, and then of course you move on to the square on PS5 or the X on Xbox button, and essentially that is a lobbed pass over to a player who you are aiming to with the left stick. We then have through balls, of course, it's Y on Xbox or it's triangle on PS5. That threads the through ball through, and essentially the player can run onto it. We have threaded through balls as well, and essentially that is holding R1 or RB on Xbox, pressing the through ball button, and essentially they will thread the ball through the defense, not particularly in line with the player making the run, but through the gap of the defenders, so that essentially your player can run onto that ball. I find it's a very good way of allowing your player to have momentum on the run when he gets in behind. We have driven passes, of course it's R1 or RB on Xbox when you press the pass button. The player does a very driven, hard and low pass across the player that you're aiming to. We have lobbed passes, which is L1, and of course the square button on PS5 or X on Xbox, and the player will do a lobbed chip / pass over to the player that you're aiming towards. A very, very good technique, especially if there is a defender in between you, because you can lob it higher over his head and make it basically untouchable. Then of course, you've got the R1. You've got the R1 pass with the obviously lobbed pass technique, which is square on PS5 or X on Xbox, and the player will essentially do a very low and driven but lifted pass over to the player that you're aiming towards. It's very driven, very, very hard and effective for getting the ball across the pitch in a quick fashion. We then of course have the lofted pass, okay, and you can do this with the through ball button or the pass button, and if you double tap it, it will be a lifted version of that pass, and essentially it will sometimes allow you to lift it over the defender's foot as he is reaching for that interception. A very, very effective passing technique in 23. But then of course move on to a few things that you should avoid when passing in FIFA, and that's essentially ensuring that you are not passing with your back to the desired player that you're trying to pass to. This will decrease the accuracy and speed of the pass, and a lot of the time it will be very inaccurate and will a lot of the time be intercepted. You need to face the direction that you want to pass nets in FIFA, because in general you need to get the angle, position the body shape to get the pass off in the correct direction. I then recommend not spam passing. Now this will kind of go in line with a future segment in this tutorial, and you probably think you're contradicting yourself a bit there, Dylan. But no, when I say don't spam pass, I mean don't pass for the sake of it. When I say later on in this video use taka and high tempo passing, I don't mean just pass for the sake of passing. It has to have purpose, but I don't recommend spam passing either, because otherwise this will just hinder your attack, and in general, the desired effect of having quick taka passing will actually become readable, because your opponent will know, well, he's just going to keep passing the ball 1 1 1 1 1 2 1 2 1 2, and you've got to be very predictable. So you need to avoid spam passing in FIFA 23. I then of course recommend not passing when there is a player in the passing lane. This is super, super crucial. To open up passing options, you need to open up passing lanes. I'm going to have a full segment on this coming up, but essentially a passing lane is the lane in between the passer and the receiver, and there's a defender in between that. He's of course going to intercept that. So we need to open up passing lanes and ensure that we're not passing when there is a defender covering that lane. I've also noticed a bit of a setback with passing this year, and something that you should avoid, and that is of course passing first time to a player that you are trying to pass to if he is relatively close to a defender. I find a first time pass into that attacker will more often than not be intercepted, and what I have found is, and I will get into this later on, is that a touch and then potentially a ball roll pass, or just a regular pass after a touch, and then passing to that attacker works a lot better, especially if you get the passing lane a lot more open. Whereas I find a first time pass into a player that's close to a defender, a lot of the time the accuracy goes down. It's a mechanic in the game I've noticed, and something you guys need to avoid. Last but not least is the mistake of always passing forwards. My goodness, probably the most common passing mistake I see in my coaching academy. People rush forward, they try and get on goal as quick as they can, and this is a very big no-no. You need to pass backwards if needed. And a lot of the time, if you don't pass backwards, you will be caught out in the attack because you'll have the ball with your striker, let's say, but because you went forward as quick as you couldn't pass forwards, the striker has no options to pass to then, because you haven't actually given your attackers time to get forward. This is very, very crucial. You need to obviously go back if needed, and as I said, don't always pass forwards. Now I'm going to keep this segment very short and sweet, but I want to talk to you guys about regular passing and essentially tempo, and in general summarize passing for you in FIFA 23. In FIFA 22, we can rely on dribbling to essentially get ourselves up to the opponent's 18-yard box and to get ourselves into shooting opportunities. You can dribble, burst into space, use explosive sprint, etc., and that would allow us to get into the box. This year it's about passing, and simply because dribbling is gone, we can't turn, okay, so we need to essentially use passing as our attacking method of getting the ball into the box. Of course, other aspects, including skill moves, etc., will count, but in general, passing is very key this year. Now, a good way of actually allowing us to do this is essentially having high tempo in our passing plays. Tika taka passing, as they say it, and essentially having a high tempo. But there's a disclaimer here. When I say increase your tempo, fast tempo, and pass very quickly, I don't mean rush. There is a difference. When you rush, you're going forward on goal as quick as you can. When I am passing with a high tempo, I'm passing quickly, I've got a quick build up, but I'm not always going forwards. I need to go back sometimes, I need to pass to the space, I need to ensure the passing lanes are open first of all, and then of course we can then build up with our attack, but it doesn't mean rush forward as quick as you can. This is super crucial. And expanding off what I just delved into with that passing segment, passing lanes are the most crucial aspect of your passing game. Essentially, you need to open up passing lanes into an attacker that you want to pass to before you can pass to him. Otherwise, the pass ain't going to be completed. The defender will intercept that ball. There are three key methods that you guys can create passing lanes in FIFA 23. It is, firstly, skill moves. Skill moves are very good at obviously allowing us to go to the side of the defender if he approaches you to open up that passing lane. Very good way of bursting into the space to create that angle for the pass into the attacker that you want. You can use skill moves including the elastico, the reverse elastico, the ball roll, the step over, whatever it is. Pretty much any skill move will allow you to burst into some space and essentially create an angle for a pass. We then have passing itself. Now, you might actually need to pass to another player before you can get the ball into the desired play that you want to pass to. If I want to hit the striker's feet, but the midfielder's covering that, I might need to pass to the winger before I can pass to the striker, so that I can open up that passing lane. So that's very crucial. And of course, the third and final technique is dribbling. Now, obviously, as I said, can't really rely on dribbling this year, but you can use other techniques like agile dribbling, strap dribbling, a little bit of left stick dribbling, as they did improve it in the last patch, but in general, dribbling isn't necessarily the most effective tactic to use for getting passing lanes. But those are the three techniques you need to create passing lanes. Super crucial. Through balls, my goodness, this can be the arch enemy of your attack, but also the savior. And through balls in general are very good at allowing us to get in behind. The only aspect I don't like about them is people will overuse them, and they will basically spam through balls but never get anywhere. Number one, because they're rushing the play. Number two, because they're essentially not allowing the attacker to get further towards that defensive line before they hit the through ball, because you do need to time it. And of course, that brings me into timing through balls. Super crucial. The time that you want to actually time the through ball is when the attacker is on the shoulder of the defender. Not too far away from him, but not too close either, because if you do allow the attacker to get too close to the defender, he'll be offside. You need to just allow him to get just briefly on the shoulder of the defender before you actually hit that through ball to time it nicely and get him in behind. And of course, we did delve into it as the basics, but there are 3 key techniques you guys can use with a regular through ball. Of course, it's the regular one with obviously triangle on PS5 or Y on Xbox. You then of course have the lofted through ball, which is the one where you double tap it and it lifts it just a little bit. It's a very good way of lifting it over the reach of the defender's foot to get in behind. And then of course you have the threaded through ball. Very good if you want to thread it through the defensive line, through the gap, through the hole, so that your attacker can run onto it. It's a very good technique for that. We then have lofted through balls. To perform, you just obviously hold an L1 or LB and you perform a through ball. And the through ball will be lofted over the top of the defense into the path of your attacker. Now, timing again is super crucial. The attacker has to essentially be on the shoulder of that defender so he can time the through ball and the run to get in behind. You then have the driven through ball. L1, R1, press the through ball button, and this will be a lofted through ball but very driven. And when it comes to deciding what through ball you want to use in the situation where you want to loft it, it's essentially how close you are to the player making the run. If you're quite far, the driven one can be quite good because it will actually be driven into the path of that attacker. But if you're quite close, sometimes a lofted one will actually be very, very broken. And essentially you can time it right as the attacker is on the shoulder of the defender, and he will obviously run in behind onto that lofted through ball, in, on, goal, in behind the defense. We then of course have first time lob through balls. Now this is actually quite broken. I've been hit with these quite often in the weekend league, and I know a lot of pros are also using these, but essentially first time through balls this year, especially the lofted ones, are very, very overpowered. Okay, and you basically want to pass it into an attacker to first time lob it over the defense into the path of the attacker making the run. Again though, you need to time it. Okay, so ensure that the attacker is on the shoulder of the defender. We then have driven passes. How overpowered were they last year at the start? My goodness. They are relatively back. They're not as bad as the end of FIFA 22. Not as good as the start of FIFA 22 this year in 23. And essentially, to perform a driven pass, I delved into it before, it's an R1/pass. And essentially, the player will do a driven version of the pass into the attacker. Now, if he is quite far away from you, the driven variation can be the correct technique in terms of passing to that attacker. If it's a regular pass, it mightn't be powerful enough and the defender could intercept. However, I will say the accuracy of driven passes aren't the greatest, and if you do them when the body shape of the attacker is not correct and is not facing towards the desired attacker that you want to pass to, it can go off target, so you need to ensure that he is facing the correct way. Hence why I had a quick segment on body shape in the mistakes that you can make when you're passing in 23. And which brings me off into the driven pass into regular pass. This is very, very effective tactic of passing in FIFA, and in general, in previous years, it's been used by many pros. What you're doing is you're driven passing into a player and then first time passing afterwards. It allows us to essentially have a quick tika taka, high tempo, fast play that is very unpredictable. The opponent doesn't know you're doing this. They don't know that you're going to do a driven pass into a regular pass. And it allows you to get up the pitch quite quickly, especially if you get the correct angles for this passing play. Recycling the ball, my favorite attacking technique in FIFA in general. I love this way of attacking. We draw the defense out, then we find passes central in the middle. When you're on the wing and you essentially draw the defense out, you can find passes central into the middle, and it's a very good way of essentially opening up the defense and exploiting the gaps that have been left open in the middle after drawing the defense out. Now, when you're on the wing, I recommend at least trying to create passing lanes inside, and if you can't do that, find a pass back to the wing back, and essentially there will be other passes offered or at least available open in the midfield / attack when you go to recycle the ball. Okay, so it's a very, very effective technique of opening up the defense if you can't do so when you're attacking up the center. Give and go passing, very, very effective, especially on the wing. And essentially when you hold L1 or LB if you're on Xbox and pass the ball, what happens is the player that received the ball and passed it will make a run. And it's a very good way of doing the give and go style passing play. And when you're on the wing and you receive the ball, you can look for a pass central in the middle whilst holding L1 or LB then given and going. He'll make the run past the defender, and you can actually pass it back into him once he makes that run. Just make sure you time it though, because as I said, timing through balls are super important. Hitting the striker's feet. This is one of the most crucial attacking techniques that you guys will ever do in any FIFA. When you hit the striker's feet through a pass, what it does is it opens up the defense and draws defenders out of their position. They will be able to come out, follow your striker once you've hit his feet, and if especially you're dribbling backwards to draw them out, what happens then from there is essentially you can exploit the space that's been opened. Now, it comes with technique, it comes with timing, but essentially you want to be passing around with your midfielders and your wingers until that passing lane opens. And use techniques like I taught you previously in opening up passing lanes to do this. And once you find the striker's feet, this is a super crucial attacking technique, and you can use it to draw the defense out and obviously open up gaps and holes in the defense. Because from there, you'll notice that the attackers around this striker will hit those holes. We can then look to obviously thread them through. Player runs and also coming to receive the ball. This is a very crucial technique in passing in FIFA, especially for keeping possession. Okay. Now, in terms of keeping possession and coming to receive the ball, if you tap R1 or RB, you're on out spots, point the left stick towards the player that you want to come and receive the pass, he will run toward you and give you a passing option. This is super crucial, and it's an actual technique where you can do two at once. You can tap R1 and point to two different players with the left stick as you're dribbling around with the attacker, and two will come and show for the ball. Very good for at least giving you guys option in the midfield or in the attack when you're progressing forward. The driven give and go as well can be done if you hold R1 and L1 at the same time. The player will basically do a driven pass as they give and go. It's very good if you want to do a huge give and go, maybe a give and go into a lob through ball. You might have the ball with the winger and look for a pass in the midfield, but he's quite far away. Still a driven version, and he'll start making a run after he makes that pass. Of course, from there, just thread him through, and he'll be on goal. Skill move passes. Wow, I can't stress to you how important this is, because in general I find skill moves, then a pass, increase the accuracy of the pass. It's in the mechanics of the game. I've noticed it, especially the through ball, especially the ball roll, and that's what this segment is about. The ball roll pass. Wowee, it is super effective. I've done a standalone video on it. It increases the accuracy of the pass. When you ball roll and pass, wow, it just always seems to lock onto the attacker that you're passing to. And I find it's a very good way of increasing that passing accuracy. Of course, other skill moves can be used as well. I find, let's say, the drag to drag, I find the body feinting to pass, the step over into pass. All of these do help, and a skill move into a pass is a very effective attacking technique and passing technique in 23, and you guys should definitely use them. Ball line, done a video on this, but wowee, is it broken in 23. When you pass along the line, or at least you run towards the byline with your winger, and you see an attacker also running towards the byline, if you get to that byline and press pass along it, it will always lock onto that attacker. And the actual ball will always travel along that line, so it's actually hard for the defender to intercept. And you can get it into the bots very easily with this technique, so as long as you actually have that passing lane to do so. And I find it's very broken, very effective, and it gets you into a position to tap it in after a sweat opportunity. The player lock pass. If you guys are struggling with a passing option, whether it's in the midfield or in the box, and you want to cut back the attacker into an area to score a cutback, then the player lock passing technique is super effective. Perform the player lock by pressing in L3 and R3 and then flicking the right stick towards a player you want to control. From there, you can actually go ahead and move him around into a passing position to obviously receive a cutback opportunity, or in general, if you're in the midfield, receive a pass. And you can create passing lanes with this, which is drag him into the space. Again, also, if you want to actually make a run with that attacker that's up top, let's say your striker, in behind, do the player lock, select him, and thread him through with a through ball. And essentially, it's a very good way of allowing you to receive a pass in a position that if you didn't do the player lock, you wouldn't be able to do so. This is very advanced, and I will do probably a standalone video on this later on in the year, but taking a touch to determine your next pass. This is obviously, it's, as I said, very advanced, and pro players are doing this all the time, but a lot of, let's say, Div 1 and below aren't the greatest at doing this. You know, they might get the hang of it a little bit, but not sure exactly, but not so much consistent with it. Essentially, when you are receiving the ball, pro players are always taking a touch into the space to determine their next pass, and this is very crucial, very important. People watch pros play and they see them take a touch into a certain direction and don't think anything of it. But the actual direction they took that touch is one of the most crucial aspects of them being able to find the next pass in their attacking game, because it allows them to set up for that angle to get the pass into the attacker they desire. If they took a touch to the wrong direction, then they'd have no chance of getting it into him, okay, because his back might be towards him, or in general, yeah, he won't be able to make that passing angle. We have the Trivela pass. It's brought to us this year. Let me just say they are super broken. You can do a cross, you can do a through ball, you can do a regular pass. Basically, the player will pass it with the outside of his foot, and what it has done is add a whole another dimension to the German cross, and we'll get into that later on. But the German cross is something that is super broken this year, and the Trivela cross makes this even more broken. Unfortunately, it is totally unstoppable. The actual curve of the cross, it always locks on to the attacker every single time. When you trigger them from the midfield down to the 18-yard box, it always locks on. Or whether you're just doing a regular through ball, these lock on to the attacker very nicely. Do it, you just hold in L2 or LT and the player will do a Trivela, whether it's a pass, whether it's a through ball, or whether it's a cross. So there you have it. There's my complete but relatively short passing tutorial in FIFA 23. I hope you guys did enjoy this. Of course, drop a like, subscribe, check me out on Instagram as well, keep in touch with your boy, and of course, if you want one-on-one coaching with me, I'm coaching on one-on-one on patreon.com. You can go and check that out. I've taken many people from Div 10 to Elite 1. It can be done, and you'll enjoy it over there. The lads over there that I'm teaching right now are enjoying it. It's a very tight-knit community. So join up and keep in touch. But as always, I hope you have a good day. I'm out. Sayonara. Au revoir. Adios. Salam. Ciao. Goodbye. Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed the video, then I'd really appreciate it if you hit the subscribe button. And lastly, if you do want any pre-gaming fuel or supplement, then head over to atpscience.com, which is the first link in the description, and use the code AussieFIFA at checkout to get yourself a discount. Not only is it the cheapest way to get supplements, but it helps me out a ton, guys, so thank you.